Negotiating rates, the big topic. This is one that you probably won't be comfortable with at first, and you may never be comfortable with it depending on your personality, but just know that this is a normal part of the process. It's going to happen no matter what you do, no matter how great you are, people are going to try and negotiate rates. So let's get into some of the key areas that might be able to help you and maximize your efficiency when dealing with people that want to negotiate on rates. Okay, for this example, let's just say that one party is not happy, right? You've either sent through the quote and they're not happy, or they've sent you the proposed budget and you're not happy. But let's just say the money doesn't match up with the expectations of the work, okay? Now you've got two options here, and both depend on the outlook that you're trying to take. And I'll just remind you of some of the things you should be taking into account when we're talking about negotiating rates and what's important and how important is it to you versus what are some of the future benefits that we're going to talk about. So really the big thing is you have to decide, do you want now money or do you want later money? And those are normally the two things that will weigh the most in the negotiating rates process. And what I mean by that is now money is, maybe this isn't the greatest job in the world. Maybe it's another toothpaste ad and you've done 15 of those and it's not really going to pay off for you later down the road, or it's some corporate thing that you really don't want to do, but you're happy to take the money off of people. And maybe you've risen out of this level. Maybe it's with a production company that you used to work with or of a lower level. And you can be quite staunch then and say, well, this is the money that I'm working for. This is what I want to do. I just need the money right now. I'm not going to use this for later. So I'm definitely not going to take a cut in my rates. I may do you a favor on something else, on time or on schedule, or may come in and do a pre-meeting without charging or whatever it is. But really it's now money versus future money. Future money is you're working with a director that you've never worked with before. You're working with a production company that you've never worked with before. And even though it might be less, you just have to keep in the back of your mind that if I do this, this opens me up to a huge possibility for work. Now, I'm definitely not saying working for free. I'm not saying working for pennies on the dollar. But a lot of times these negotiations will be for a couple $1,000s in an already ballooned fees. If you're charging $5,000 a day and it's a 3-day shoot and they're talking about travel days, it can be for, $1,000, $2,000 can be the difference in what they're asking for sometimes. And you have to decide, how hard am I going to push here? What are the pros? What are the cons? And as long as you know that and you're clear with it, it can be a lot easier making those decisions, having those conversations with these people and being upfront and honest. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would say is, again, remembering the time frame that the production is under, and that they are looking for services that you have, right? They've come to you to solve a problem of the visual delivery of the treatment. They've come to you. They think that you have the skills to do this. Now, they're probably dealing with a lot of people at this stage and lots of cinematographers asking these rates. Maybe they're not, maybe they are. But they're looking for services. Now, if you say that you're not going to budge, not only do they have to go and find somebody else and do this whole process again, but it's also the time that it takes to do that process, right? It's not just the work of someone doing it, but it's the time involved. So you have that leverage up your sleeve, right? So things to remember. Where do I have the power and where do I not have the power? And how much do I want to push? What is this going to benefit me now versus what is it going to benefit me in the overall building of this relationship? And cinematography is really a unique position in the film production world because every project is like you're buying stock in that company. You're buying stock in that director. You're buying stock in that production company, because any job could be the one that leads to that next level up. It could take off, it could win the awards, it could do whatever it is, where as a first AC or a gaffer, when they're not really getting credited and they don't have that much input into the final style of something, it's a little bit harder, right? Those guys can negotiate a little bit, they're a little bit more boxed in with their rates because they don't have the ability to be flexible. It's not like they're going to put on their resume that they worked on so-and-so commercial and that's all of a sudden going to boost their rates for every other job. It doesn't work like that, but for a cinematographer, it does. So it's really something to keep in the back of your mind of, is it a good buy here? Is it good to have stock in this producer? Is it good to have stock in this production company? And that can help you when it gets difficult and maybe some of the jobs aren't offering as much money, or maybe you're actually losing money on a project if you're having to travel, but just something to keep in the back of your mind that you're buying stock in the future. And can you deliver, how much will the return be if this relationship goes off and we're looking 12 months from now versus getting paid 30 days from now, on something local that might look like it pays more, but isn't worth the same as buying that stock. Now, the things that I go through, the checklist that I go through when I'm looking at future money and buying stock, number one is going to be the director. Is it a director that I want to work with that I've never worked before? definitely will take a pay cut for that. Is it a producer or production company that I want to work with that I haven't worked with before? We'll definitely take a pay cut for that. Will definitely be negotiable because now at the level that I'm at, it's more international jobs. I'd definitely be negotiable on travel days, on overall project days. If again, if they have strength in numbers where they're looking at a 5 or 6 day production, but I'm going to be away for 12, I can make negotiations in that range. But I'm going to definitely look at the stock possibilities in the producer and director. Another big one is genres. So if it's a genre that I want to get into that I haven't done much in, I'm going to be much more flexible with rates, going to be much more open to hearing what they have to offer. If I can get into a different genre, like a sports genre or a beauty genre or a car genre, one of those things, you have to take into account that, okay, I'm going to be a little bit more flexible because as soon as I get my foot in that door, it opens me up and just separates me from everyone else that doesn't have that genre on their reel. And it can be a really, really lucrative process getting that first step. And then the last one would be if it's a big step up in level. So usually that coincides with a director or producer that you want to work with. But if it's a big step up in level, also, that will open you up to a whole new range of people, a whole new network of crew, a whole new network of agencies and production companies. So again, something to take into account when you're thinking about these things and thinking about negotiating on your rates. One big thing to remember at this stage is, that good cop, bad cop thing that we keep referencing, which is positive about having an agent, is the director, a lot of times, depending on how the production company works, the director often won't have information about how much you charge versus how much someone else charge. So usually it's you and the producer having these conversations. The director really isn't involved. So you can, again, try and keep up that positive relationship. This whole time you're having these negotiations about rates, you should be going back and looking at what was said in those initial conversations and doing your research and building up that relationship with that director in the pre-production process while simultaneously having these rate conversations. Because if you get the go, you don't want to be a week behind because you've been thinking that you're not going to get the job because of this rates thing. So just keep in mind that you have to be doing these things at the same time, simultaneously having conversations here, conversations there, thinking about problems, researching, and doing these negotiation talks. But generally, they won't know how much it is. So dealing with a producer is really key to getting this across the line. And finally, this is a chance for you to leverage now money versus later money. As your career grows, you have much more leverage in this battle because you'll be looking for less future money and more now money. And like I said before, you can use that against them as a point of leverage, saying, because if you're busy, they probably know it. And they probably know that they're asking for a favor. They probably know that they're reaching. And so you can use that and say, listen, I'd love to be a part of the project. These are the rates. This is it at the moment. Things are so busy that, it doesn't make sense for me to charge half for a travel or a pre-day when I could be working on something else. So now it's going to have to be a full day. Things along those lines. Just look for little pinpoints where you can, again, be fair, be just, know that whatever you do now will eventually come back to you. And as long as you keep those things in mind, you should be good to go for negotiating rates.